Hi, my name is John Richardson, and I am a consultant, coach, author, and speaker and advisor to the hospitality industry, particularly the cafe, coffee shop, and restaurant part of it. I worked for 15 years as an owner operator, built and sold 13 distinct hospitality businesses myself. Some very well, learned a lot of mistakes along the way. But over the last 15 years, I've worked with a lot of clients in terms of helping them to build their business, both organically, but also through foreign exit. I've written 3 books on the subject of building and running profitable cafes and coffee shops. I am the director of content at Cafe Culture, and I say all of that just to give you some context as to why I have been brought in, or to have a little bit of a look at the valuation of the original Pasty House, and why I particularly believe there's quite extraordinary value in this business. Our valuation principles are fairly normal. As with most cases in the industry, they're based on unadjusted EBITDA to take account of grants and things, particularly in the last year or so, and directors' wages and so on, so that we've got a clear version of an EBITDA, and then a series of multiples, a series of variables that multiply that EBITDA and create a value at the end. Now, the way that we do this is that we run it through a scoring process. So if somebody comes to me looking for some help in the early stages to sell their business, maybe 18 months, 2 years beforehand, I will go through a scoring process and work out what they need to work on. And all of my consulting is generally based around a traffic light system. Green is good, we're happy with that. Orange is an area we need to work on, and red is the stuff that we really need to work on, whether it's to make the business more profitable or ultimately to build for a successful exit at the end. And what you'll see here is, of course, that we have, out of my 16 variables, we've got an awful lot of greens, and we've got an overall score of 95%, which is as high as I have ever seen. I'm going to go through each of these as briefly as possible. You will probably have seen the other documents, but I wanted to show the thinking behind the valuation within this. So these variables aren't necessarily in order, but obviously to begin with, what you want is a strong set of audited recent accounts from a professional firm. What you don't want is what I term backslapping additions. In other words, oh, there's lots of cash, there's lots of stuff that's a bit messy. And that we have in spades. It's very, very clear within this business, and they're very good, solid accounts. Secondly, we want clean management accounts, ideally monthly and with an upward trend. We want to see, particularly when you take a year like last year or the last 2 years, we want to be seeing very recent information, and we want to see an upward trend. And that has happened very strongly within this business. The model, as I sit here and do this in mid-December, the model continues to show strong growth every month, and that's very important. Variable 3 is this creation of a profit-producing system that runs without the owners being there. Now, this is one of the strongest greens, as it were, that we've got, because both Nigel and Janet have spent 15 to 17 years in a very strong, huge corporate chain business at a very senior level. And the ability to create a system, build a system around their business, is almost hardwired into them. So they have created a business that can work very, very successfully without them being there or not. In fact, they very frequently are not visiting one of the businesses. An awful lot happens without them having any input. So this is a huge tick, very valuable for a buyer. 4 is a strong and unique brand identity. You want to be buying something that is unique, isn't necessarily me too, isn't easy to be copied. And they have a very strong presence in the community, and they have this very strong brand identity that can then be extended out. 5 is the first of the 2 future potentials, because obviously any valuation very strongly needs to be based upon what can this business then turn into, or the valuation sits low. Now, there are a lot of key areas, as you would have seen from the additional pitch decks, that this business can expand, has not expanded into within the 2 existing locations, such as extra hours, such as putting on pizza. There's a whole bunch of stuff that can happen within that business to grow without actually doing the normal expansion piece, which is variable 6. So to achieve any strong multiple beyond any basic norms, what we obviously want is a business that can be expanded rapidly at low cost, and without putting an awful lot of money through. John Warlow, the American consultant, talks about this as the lack of need to write a second check or a big second check. The first check being what you pay the owners, the second check being the how much do you have to pay to roll the business out. Now, what you want in an ideal world is a business that can be expanding rapidly through very strong cash flow with a small amount of borrowing and little or no second check, and that is exactly what we have here. Variable 7 is a simple and proven model. Now, this applies in two different ways. You want a simple enough model that isn't reliant upon very high skill levels and chefs and bakers and so on. It must be easy to understand, and it must be easy then to facilitate rollout. And that is what we've got here very, very strongly too. And I think this is a very key strength of the business. Variable 8 is quality leases. Obviously, so often I see businesses that we just stop overnight in terms of any valuation because the leases aren't strong. But we have very high quality leases, recently renegotiated downwards and within the Landlord and Tenants Act. And that's essential, obviously. Variable 9 is the business in a rising market. Now, the research that we've done, and when you look at what's happening in a post-COVID world, is showing that what they have created is very strongly sitting in a rising market. It ties in very strongly with some of the systemic change that has happened within the industry as a result of the consumer behavior changes as a result of COVID. Variable 10 is the people. You want a strong culture that actively attracts good people. Now, with recruitment being such a big issue, this is a much bigger issue than you would normally have. And the culture that Nigel and Janet have created has created this very, very strongly. They have no recruitment problems and they have very low staff turnover. And they have, as I say, very little direct input themselves. It's purely strategic. Variable 11 is the management. So they have built and continue to build. They continue to invest and build in this business. A strong management team who are, and I'm smiling because the level of stuff that this management team has done in terms of developing the business forwards without any input from Nigel and Janet has been quite extraordinary. Now, to have that as a management team available for a new owner to come in and not kick back against the loss of the owners is very, very powerful. Obviously, you may also have a situation where if you've got poor management, you want them to be able to move on, but that is not the case here. It's a very strong team. Variable 12 is the payback time. So you obviously want to have, in an ideal world, if we stick purely within the cafe, coffee shop, hospitality world, you want to be trying to have a payback time, certainly of less than 2 years, so that you're not writing this significant second check. We've calculated that the payback time could be less than a year for each new unit. So the payback time is a very big strength. Variable 13 is the cash flow. Core business generates a lot of cash in addition to the profitability. It's like a large amount of hospitality businesses, money is in the till, suppliers are paid 30 days, 45 days down the line. So it is a very strong cash generating business which can actually generate enough cash without touching profit to open up a second location. And I think this is a critical point. Variable 14 is our first amber, our first one that needs a little bit of work. It's the customer contact channels. And these are things like databases, very strong social media, and that ability to be able to have strong contact with customers. Now, whilst it sits as an amber at the moment, what they are doing is building out, and a lot of this new management team are very heavily marketing focused and are building out not just much stronger social media, but also new databases fixed within the apps, much better ways to communicate with the customer. So it sits as an amber, but within a couple of months, that will be at a green again because of what is happening right now, regardless of the sale of the business. Number 15 is momentum. You want to see recent growth. You want to see the model, not something that expanded very well up until 5 years ago and continues to be profitable. You want to see strong recent growth and successful trials. that have proven that the model can expand. So that is continuing to go on at the moment. The momentum that that has happened, not just in terms of sales, but adding on additional products and tweaking and adjusting, has all shown enormous opportunity. Variable 16 is our final one, and that is the whole recurring revenue thing. It's a difficult one to have within hospitality, but it's one of those key aspects that really increases the exit value of a business. Now, there are a number of areas within that are currently in place and being developed, because this is something that is also being worked on by a lot of the big delivery platforms, and there are a number of opportunities there. So we have 2 ambers out of all of the 16 multipliers, and both of them are being worked on. And this is why I firmly believe that the valuation of this business is entirely justifiable, and that the right operator can come in and make very substantial money without writing a substantial second check.